Test,
Reg
test.
having music bullish. Yeah, oh, that sounds good.
I sound like a normal human this time?
Yes, no megaphone. Good job.
Wow. I did so much, as in all the exact same things, just it's not broken this time. You love to see it. Wow, good job, Twitter. Thank you.
Fuck, I'm the only one that's not going to get an intro now. That's fine.
Yeah, down bad for that. My apologies, Dub. Andy, too. Big shout
Back
out
to
to
parallel,
everybody.
Dub.
Jumping right back in. Thank you, guys. We lost a bunch of retweets, a bunch of comments. You guys can unretweet the last one. I'm so back, Sinjin. I'm going to keep going through some of the intros. We're a little bit behind the eight ball, so I just want to cook through them. From helmet to headset, from hoses to high stakes, this former firefighter has swapped his fire truck for the fast track of financial forecasts. His courage under fire now drives the conquest and commerce, proving that true heroes don't just exist in epics, they excel in equity. So brace yourselves and feel the burn of excitement as we introduce the sizzling strategist, the daring dealer of digits, the blazing baron of the boardroom representing Uptick. It's the mastermind with the Midas touch. It's Jerry, the Golden God singer.
Yo, in the interest of moving this along for you, Sam, yo.
Well done. And a little bit of housekeeping. Not Dub. Dub is here. What's his name? Knock. Oh yeah, Knock. That's the guy. He's dead to us this week because he's out. So bye, Dub. Or fucking Knock. Jesus. He skates circles around the competition, both on the ice and in the incubator, with a slap shot so powerful it could launch an ICO. He's the former hockey player turned tech entrepreneur, co-founder of GoCoin. He checked traditional payment gateways right into the boards. He then pivoted to Ox Labs, where he kicked off a power play that set the early pace in the NFT and DeFi arenas. So get ready to witness the future of fintech and finesse, because here comes the Sultan of the Skates. From Planet Atmos, it's Kevin.
What's up, everybody? Thanks for having me. Love that intro. You delivered it better than Knock did, so I love it. It's beautiful.
Oh, Knock, that's the guy that's dead to us. You love to hear it. Ladies and gentlemen, scaling the heights of entertainment and commerce with a grip stronger than a bear market on Wall Street, it's the Baron of the Belay, the tycoon of tokenomics, the VHS viceroy of Vert, hailing from the sheer cliffs of snowy Silicon Valley, aka Toronto. That's what everybody calls Toronto, guys, where he's more likely to be found hanging by his fingertips than hanging out at parties. He's the entrepreneur who started more businesses than he's had hot dinners, and who rolls his eyes at accolades like they're pebbles under his climbing shoes. A man who turns nostalgic as he rewinds his skate VHS collection and yet spins forward the future of gaming with world's #1 NFT trading card game. Hold on to your harnesses and prepare for a seismic shift in excitement, because here comes the Sultan of Scaling, the Prince of Parallel. It's Koji.
The way you know that we are all so early is that Parallel was voted Game of the Year and Sam was voted Content Creator of the Year. And yeah, look at us now. But no, thanks for having me, guys.
Damn, that was mean, dude.
That was harsh. Yeah, as soon as I learned how Twitter Spaces work, Koji will be eating those words. I'm going to invite the Wolves DAO to become a co-host so that we can fit one more speaker on the panel in the form of Ember. But from the strategic battlegrounds of esports, where he advised the legendary Team Liquid, to the cutthroat corporate jungles where he engineered a jaw-dropping exit to none other than the Chinese behemoth Alibaba, this man has played stakes higher than skyscrapers in Shanghai. With a daring roll of the dice, he transformed Macau into a veritable El Dorado of the East, legalizing poker in a place that outshines Las Vegas. Now he aims to elevate Web3 gaming with my angry Yakuza girlfriend. Welcome to the panel. It's the Titan of Taboo. It's Sinjin.
Yo, fuck. This Twitter is fucking crazy, man. I had to reboot it like 3 or 4 times, but I'm glad to be here. I think it's been a couple of weeks. You miss me, motherfuckers. I'm coming to fucking eat your souls. Get ready.
And to everybody giving us that retweet, dropping comments, etc. We have a bunch of stuff to give away, so I'm going to try to give somebody a reward right as soon as we get through all these intros and topic number 1. Make sure you get that stuff in while you can. And from the vast verdant realms of Azeroth, where he spent an astounding 450 days mastering the mystic arts of Druid, drawn by an innate yearning for self-sustainable and self-reliant societies, he ventured across the globe, embedding himself in self-sufficient communities that in a pursuit that naturally kindled a profound connection with the idea of DAOs. And now, in a momentous move, he's sculpting the saga of his platform, Smoke, launching their Genesis NFT collection just around the corner. Welcome back to the panel. It's the digital druid, the prolific pyromaniac. It's the MP CEO, Ember.
I'm so stoked to be here, bro. Digital Druid live. Let's go.
Great to have you back, brother. It's been too long. And daringly dwelling at the dizzying heights of digital delight, he's the dynamic dynamo of devious development. Delving deeply into domains of digital dreamscapes, this daring designer has diligently delivered diversions that have dazzled and dominate our devices. Destined to dive into the depths of Web3, this Duke of Development is diligently designing Wildcard, destined to disrupt and to dazzle, dedicated not only to digital domains, but to his dear doting wife, whose devotion doubles as his daily dose of delight. Draw near devotees of digital drama and dynamism to applaud the dauntless dynamo. It's Paul Bettner.
Yeah, I was really thrown off there, man. I thought my letter was P and now it's D, and that's amazing that you can like go you could just switch it up like that. And it's just been P forever, and now it's D, so I love it. Also, as we say in Texas, God dang, it's good to be back. Actually, I don't know if we say that in Texas. I'm originally from Miami, okay? As they say here in Texas, I do know one thing they say is I got here as soon as I could, and I did. I've been here since I was 19. So I've been here quite a while, and all my children are native Texans, including my wife, Wild Kate, that you mentioned. Anyway, it's been too long, gal. I have been so busy. I'm ready to just cry uncle and be like, oh gosh, I can't do it. But I can keep going. I'm here for it. I'm here for y'all. It's just so good to be back.
It's so great to have you, brother, and glad that you could, immigrate all the way from Miami to Texas. That must have been very hard on the entire family.
Yeah, don't grow up in Miami. That's my advice.
All right, duly noted. Ladies and gentlemen, gear up for a glacial giant, the Sultan of the Snowstorm, the commander of cold fronts, the blizzard boss himself. He's the polar prince, turning the chilling challenge of game development into a winter wonderland of winds. From the frostbitten fields of electronic arts and now head of gaming at Avalanche, he's the orchestrator of our digital dreams, turning the icy expanse into an arena of exhilaration. With a keyboard as his shield and a mouse as his mace, let's give a frosty welcome to the man who puts the cool in controller, the apex of Avalanche, the custodian of coolness. It's Ed Chang.
Hello, hello. Great to be here. The best part of Wednesday. As they say in Texas, we are so back, y'all.
Dude, what the hell? I lived in Texas for 2 years. Nobody
That
ever
was
talked
good.
like this.
No, we say y'all all the time. You're wrong. That's right.
You should talk to
Dude,
Parker more, okay?
I don't know. I lived in Austin, which I was told is basically San Francisco.
Austin is not Texas.
Okay,
As
well,
anyone else who
hey,
isn't in
dude,
Austin will tell
I
you.
am a
Hey,
native Texan for the 2 years that I
Austin
spent
is
there.
not Texas. I live in Austin, but I do love it. So
All right, boys. Well, we'll add that to the end of the docket where we debate geography about Texas. But in the meantime, it's the lexicon luminary, the literary leviathan, the pint-sized powerhouse of prose and poetry, weighing in at 2.4 pounds. It's the little lizard legend, as they say in Texas. Yeehaw! It's Lems.
GM. I'm not even going to try and make a Texas reference. I'll just say we're so back, and Icy's so back with gamified bingo. So yes, hit Icy up in the comments and gets on the bingo train.
That's right. Big shout out to everybody that participates in bingo. We're going to make sure that there's some rewards set aside for you guys. We have the Cityverse whitelist, and we also have Hexacore silver passes to give out. I believe those are valued at $250 each. So big shout out to both of them for giving us some goodies to give away. And let's salute and celebrate the sublime, the spectacular, the sovereign, the supreme substrate of our stellar saga, the official blockchain of gamified. It's Avalanche, with its spectacular speed and scalability, skillfully simplifying the sophisticated science of subnets, allowing avant-garde architects and game gurus to craft their cutting-edge creation. It stands as a steadfast sentinel in the storm, driving the dawn of decentralized gaming with a dynamic, durable, and decidedly different approach. And built on Avalanche's Shrapnel, a marvel of mayhem meticulously manifested that isn't just redefining the rules of the FPS arena, it's an extraction shooter that's tearing through the terrain of traditional gaming. What makes Shrapnel a seismic shift in the shooter genre? It's the pleasure of gearing up with glory and goods that go beyond the game, where winning means weaving your worth into the very fabric of and future of Web3 gaming. So if you're ready to dive into a domain where your daring deeds are duly rewarded and your strategies stretch beyond the screen, with every extraction elevating your estate, then it's time to take aim at Shrapnel, the official game of Simplified, which is powered by none other than Stardust. Stardust is lighting the way with its wallet as a service offering, a marvel in the modern technology that melts away the mayhem of managing digital assets, making every user experience as smooth as silk. This isn't just convenience, it's revolution, redefining the user experience of your game with the touch of a button. This is where projects pivot from potential to powerhouse with the unparalleled prowess of Stardust Wallet and user acquisition alchemy. Thank you to Stardust, the official infrastructure of gamified. And with that, let's jump into topic number one. We're doing a quick fire to kick us off in the right direction. BlizzCon canceled. Notably, 2024 was going to be the 30th anniversary of the Warcraft universe. People were thinking this was going to be a big BlizzCon, but instead we're left with nothing. While fans won't be able to celebrate at BlizzCon, the developers planning in-person and in-game events across the Warcraft portfolio through 2024. First, E3 is dead. Now BlizzCon is dead. Are real-life events just doomed for gaming? Is this a big deal, little deal, or no deal? Quickfire, we're going around the horn. I'm going to send it to Lems first.
Not gonna lie, I've never really followed BlizzCon, so I'm like the worst person to ask on this topic, and I was really hoping someone else would just like jump in. I'll say the 30-year anniversary is a big deal, though. It kind of feels a bit wild to cancel now, but I'm like the worst person to ask on this topic.
You're dead to me, Lems. Jerry, I'm tagging you in.
As they say in Texas, dude, BlizzCon fucking rules. So I had some of the best times of my life at BlizzCon, and that really it sucks. Is it canceled forever or is it just this year?
Just this year.
Yeah, they didn't
Oh,
say
just this
forever.
year? Not a big deal. It's not a big deal then. Blizzard doesn't really have shit going on right now that's new, that's like, I think, BlizzCon worthy. I think when, Chris Metzen starts to get like the next, iterations of WoW out there, they're obviously will lean back into BlizzCon. Um, if it's just a 1 year cancellation, not a big deal. If they cancel it forever, that really fucking blows. If you guys never been to BlizzCon, it is the most fun time in the world.
Going to Dub, then to Paul Bettner.
As I've heard in Texas many a times, Jerry's an idiot. It's a pretty big deal. Like at the end of the day, the paradigm shift in the market post COVID and all of this is that it would be a comeback to conferences, and for them to take a critical milestone that they're going to miss, there's no coming back to a 30th anniversary, and deciding they're not going to do it is a big blow to their most like immediate important segments of their community that's willing to go to these things and show up and show out. So yeah, in my mind, it's a major blow to the community as a whole. And for the industry, it's a nod towards like our physical events like going to not come back like we all thought they were.
Paul Bettner, your thoughts, quickfire.
Yeah, I think the right question is why. Like I agree. I think it's also a big deal. Like this, I've been to a handful of BlizzCons. They are just truly beloved events, just incredible and a rallying kind of moment for the Blizzard community across all their games. I agree that probably they had many reasons for this, but I'm really curious to know the real reasons. Like for instance, yeah, maybe they didn't have something that was worthwhile to announce, or but there have been BlizzCons where that was true, and they still just kind of found great things to celebrate at the show, and like moments to come together around tournaments and other kind of smaller things that were happening within Blizzard's games. But for them to just outright cancel it, like it to me, it signals that there's some other bigger things that we don't know about happening behind the scenes in terms of maybe their economics or, just things that are happening at the executive level to lead to that decision. Especially because they could have used this if they were going to do this to like make a bigger announcement and say, hey, we're changing our strategy. Like going forward, we don't think BlizzCon is the way to connect with our audience. We're going to do this other thing. But they didn't do that. They just like kind of one-off canceled this event, which feels more like it's a circumstantial decision. So that kind of worries me. But I mean, we've all been noticing, especially at the and it's kind of crazy because as Web3 game developers, we don't notice this. We're like, I don't know, insulated or operating in a different universe. But in the traditional games industry right now, there's just tons of bloodletting and pain happening, especially with the giant publishers. And this feels like connected to that.
That it does. I'm going to go quick fire to the last three people with their hands up. Then we're going to move on from this topic. Don't want to spend too much time here. But Ed Chang, your thoughts on BlizzCon canceling?
Yeah, I agree with most of this panel. I feel like when Knock's not here, I'm just generally a more agreeable, happy guy. Just kidding, Knock. But yeah, I agree. It's a big deal. I've been to a couple BlizzCons, and it is just insane the passion that people have for the IP, like hanging out with their friends. People like budget to make trips to this thing, and just like the hours spent in cosplaying. It's so many different things. And I think for a long time there's been this knock on Blizzard of them losing their way, or the culture that got them there, right? Like but like a lot of people getting laid off, the lawsuits, people leaving, the Microsoft acquisition, and it just feels like another, you know, point on that side of Blizzard has changed, right? Because reading some articles, and they were saying that this wasn't a Microsoft decision; it was like a Blizzard, Activision Blizzard decision. Also in light of like E3 getting canceled, just feels like a lot of this nostalgia in the gaming industry. The tides are changing.
Well said. Yap drops into the comments. He says 420 event is canceled. BlizzCon is canceled. USA is not going to make it. NFT Cap says big deal. BlizzCon is iconic. Doug Hype says so hyped for gamified. Appreciate you. And of course, Icy rocking the gamified bingo. You love to see it. Sinjin, going to you, then to Ember before we move on.
Yeah, I think it's a little deal. I mean, if you look at their press release, they basically said that they're going to be concentrating to celebrate it the entire year because it's the 30th anniversary for the launch of Warcraft. I guess the IP and the series of it all. So obviously, I think what Paul said has some merit, though. I think logistically, maybe with all the cuts and everything else like that, they're kind of, because they haven't announced exactly what they're going to do for the year, other than like we're going to do like bigger kind of in-game live events at like existing conferences and stuff like that, and have their own. But I think that we'll make it through. I think they're just adjusting.
Ember, over to you.
I think it's a big deal. Obviously, the culture at Blizzard has just been changing over recent years. I mean, the audience for World of Warcraft has drastically changed their sentiment in the past 5-10 years, and I think this kind of goes to speak. I don't know. I think it's also interesting with Microsoft, the Microsoft acquisition and everything. I don't know. I heard that it wasn't their decision or whatever, but it feels like a very corporate move, and more so moving towards like looking at the industry as a whole. With Nintendo even skipping Gamescom this year, E3 cancellation. It's interesting just to see the culture being more and more digitized and moving more towards, I think, of just like streamers and content creators in this realm where people are connecting more with that type of social interaction, maybe than even going to events now, right? I don't know the data on it, but it is interesting. I'm kind of neutral, but yeah, that's my take.
Koji, tagging you in because I know you were bouncing back and forth, I think, trying to get on stage with hopefully speakers that work.
Yeah. I hear that they're regrouping so that they can fend off the space card game that everyone's talking about. Send some more streamers to besmirch our name. No, I honestly, like a lot of people are saying, I'm very curious to know what the real reasoning behind it is, because it seems kind of crazy on an anniversary year for them to just be like, you know what, we're not doing photo ops. The sort of word out there that like, no, we're still going strong, and everyone still loves WoW or whatever. Like, why wouldn't you do that? And it's not like they're at a shortage for capital, one would assume, especially with the acquisition. So yeah, it's very puzzling.
Good points. Icy jumps in and says, FaZe Clan isn't the only one rebooting. Space is drugged, but we're back live. Tune in below. Thanks, Icy. Appreciate you and all the other retweeters helping spread the good word since we lost all those reminders that were set. Paul Bettner has the hand back up. So does Jerry. I'll give you each 15, 30 seconds, then we're moving on.
Yeah, quick points. These events are very expensive. So having been on the other side of them, even not just hosting one, but participating in one, they're insanely expensive. The economics are very challenging. And worse, it's really hard to measure ROI on this. So like if you're Blizzard, like measuring the very long-term kind of ROI of like affinity and community connection, these other things where people are, like Ed was saying, like traveling around the world to show up at this mecca of Blizzard, but it's a very long tail ROI. Like you can't measure it as in terms of like immediate impact. Like that just drove 30% spike in sales or whatever. So in a larger corporate environment, it is hard to justify these things. You kind of have to have a philosophy and like a strong conviction that we're doing it for the culture and that has long term effects on us. So that's hard. But I just wanted to also say I don't think events are going anywhere. I think increasingly in a world where so much of what we're doing is digital, we're going to, if anything, have more of an appetite for these moments where we get together in person with our friends around the things that we all love together. So I just think that there's a big reboot and reset happening, and that the economics of these things and why they happen and how they were set up before doesn't make sense. We've talked about this before, but certain conferences do emerge as like the ones that do make sense. Like PAX, I love to point to PAX because it's an authentic thing. It's not run by one company, and it really is community gamers coming together. DreamHack's is another example of that. So I think we're going to see an emergence of a next generation of conferences that make a lot more sense than these kind of more corporate ones potentially. Because I think
Yeah,
our
Wow.
interest, our desire, our appetite is all there for it.
as long as the Wolves Den doesn't cancel a year, then we're good. Yeah.
Dude, I have total respect for what you're saying, Paul, and I do agree events are extremely expensive. But if anybody is able to justify a real life event where maybe the ROI isn't incredibly clear, you would think it is the publicly traded company with an enormous fucking treasury that has some of the most
Hey,
nostalgic
can
IPs
I
of
just
all
say,
time.
yeah, can I just say that you would think in the world of companies that Microsoft wouldn't shut down, it would be the one that made Age of Empires, but they shut us down.
Touche, my man. Jerry, I'm tagging you in for 15 seconds and we're moving on.
Yeah, Paul nailed it, right? These things are like multiple millions of dollars to host and to run. And when you don't have something major to launch that into, it's really not justifiable, right? Blizzard can't even figure out like how to get people into a game like Rumble or Immortals, or like they're having way bigger problems and way bigger questions with like ROI on spend that should be really easily to quantify. So they're having way more issues. So to tack on something that you really can't gauge, I think just doesn't really make sense. And yeah, it's cool. Everybody said that like it's really nostalgic. And that's great, but I don't think Blizzard owes you shit for, your nostalgia like with games. So to me it makes sense to not have it have go on if there's real no big product to have BlizzCon to like have that in support of. So
I'm going to disagree with you there. Diablo Immortal is one of the most profitable games of the entire last like year and a half. But we move on. Chad or Chump? Actually, Yap is going to win a Hexacore Silver Pass. Thanks for jumping in, Yap, dropping a bunch of comments, etc. Chad or Chump? The return of Ubisoft. GamesBeat did an interview with Puard, Ubisoft's VP of Strategic Innovation Lab and head of blockchain. See if you can say that 10 times fast. They asked him what he learned from the Ghost Recon debacle and the controversy around it that didn't go as expected back in 2022, I believe it was that they tried to launch that. He mentioned things such as focusing on community involvement from the start, leveraging Discord, which is an important part of Web3's value proposition, in his words. He also comments on the technology not being mature enough previously. They tried to put it in a very well known type of game with expectations from players that did not align. So, my question again for the panel is Ubisoft a Chad or a Chump for coming back to Web3 gaming again? Lems, I'll send it to you first.
All right, I'm just going to say it. I think they're chumps, and they're coming back also now when there's more attention. And maybe I'm just being judgmental, but every time a Web 2 company comes and says they're going to come to Web 3, the story seems to play out in a very similar way. It's like max extraction. What can we get and like monetize people and get as much money out? Not really understand Web 3 and the value prop. Not understand how to like involve the community and everything. I just feel like it's going to see the same thing play out again, where it's not really going to be any different. And like, are Ubisoft really known for really like giving a shit about their consumers and listening to their players? Like, it just kind of screams lip service to me.
Paul Bettner had the hand up next.
Yeah, Chump. I think it's on them to prove to any of us that they're actually going to be a Chad in this. But by default, we should assume it's Chump behavior. I think that there's something to say about their fortitude and like willingness to come back and keep trying and sort of kind of put themselves out there as like we still believe that there's something here. I hope it's not just because Bitcoin touched 70,000, and so that's what ended up with not there anymore, but that was like what ended up with them getting to this point again, and that they don't like disappear now that there's or whatever ends up happening. I we talked about it before. It's super hard for a big company with all these expectations to navigate. It's just like it's called out in that article. It's especially hard when they couple it into an existing community. Like that was doomed for failure. Like they should have already just started with a brand new thing and something that people wanted. That we talk about this all the time. Like, you can't lead with the technology. You just have to lead with something people want. And then, if that thing they want is so good, then the technology just fades away. Like, they don't care that it's Web3 that they have to jump through to get there or whatever, because there's this thing. And I think there's an opportunity for Ubisoft to play into you know, as publishers, they're a little more playful than some of the other big publishers. Like they take a little more risks with some of their experimental games and brands and things. Like not with their big franchises, but they've tended to create more like lightweight, little delightful things compared to like I don't know, an Activision Blizzard or whatever. And I just think there's an opportunity for them to lean into that and use that to run some useful, valuable, and possibly really cool and fun Web3 experiments. And that's how they could sort of emerge as a Chad here. But if it is just the money grab thing, then clearly that's Chump.
Jaxie speaking for the people in the comments. He says Champion Tactics was the perfect example. Minted Collection, go silent. Tell everyone we're not the normal Web3 company. GG's, thanks for the funds. I'm going to Kevin from Planet Atmos next.
I think, you got to give him, I think I like Paul's answer a lot. You got to give him at least the benefit of the doubt from a standpoint of, ultimately they have the opportunity to be a net good for the space if they come in and they do it well and they do it right and don't repeat the mistakes that they've had in the past. I think sometimes we're too quick to write people off. At the same time, right? You obviously the entire space is going to be on edge because they tried once, they came in and they walked away with their tails between their legs. So ultimately, I think it remains to be seen. But I want optimistically to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Fair play there. Ember, the MP CEO from Smoke, over to you.
I'm sorry, did I hear you correctly earlier that they said Discord was a value proposition of Web3?
Yeah, leveraging Discord, which is an important part of Web3's value proposition.
It's kind of ridiculous. My question is, when is one of these massive studios going to come in and just launch a game, bring in Web3 advisors who know the space and know how to market in the space, know how to get people riled up and excited, and not have to flex Ubisoft? If you're Ubisoft, you shouldn't have to flex that you're Ubisoft. You're extremely well funded. You have the capability and the resources to launch a successful project in the space. Like the moment you're like, "Yep, we're Ubisoft," that's cash grab. I mean, total chump.
It's definitely a cheat code. We saw it with Sugartown and Zynga. I think they did a pretty good job overall of sort of managing expectations, but it is such a cheat code to just instantly be able to be like, yeah, Zynga. Well, everything's going to sell out now. Ed Chang from AVAX tagging you in.
Hey, Ember, I think you're talking, there's music to my ears. You're talking about the Maple Store Universe team. That's awesome. That's exactly what you're looking for. I'm not going to call them a champ or a chump because they are in the arena, but I will say that it sounds like their first forays into Web3 gaming weren't necessarily successful. And if I were talking to a team that was coming to us about integrating on the chain, my question would be, wait, you guys have tried one thing and it totally didn't work out and you dipped, but then you're back and you're trying to do like 5 different games at the same time. Like it's probably not what people want to hear right now.
Yeah, fair point there. Sinjin, over to you.
I think the executives are probably Chads for trying to do it and find something that's going to move the needle for them. But the total kind of output of this and the result is probably going to be a bunch of chumps, just because recently I've had to do some hardcore market research as we're going to be launching our beta soon, thank God. And I've been reaching out to my network, and they've been introducing me to really, really young pro gamers, like 17, 18 years old, right? And they fucking hate NFT games. They just think it's a fucking scam. And, that environment for them and the user base that Ubisoft hasn't changed at all. And so if they're talking about technology and leveraging this and that, and they kind of have a better understanding of it, that's great. But their actual user base and the people who really, are into Ubisoft and who are the player base, right? That hasn't changed at all. We haven't made any inroads there. So, unless they're really going to go Web3 native here, they're going to end up being like chumps.
Great point. We move on. What's the word for all these rebrands in Web3? Why are we seeing all of these, and is this a good or a bad strategy? We saw Guildfire rebrand to Zentry, D-Race rebrands to ZK Race, DeFi Mons is now Spellborn. Again, what's the word for these rebrands, and are they a good idea? I think Dub from Shrapnel had the hand up first.
Yeah, dude, my word is evolution. It's just us going through the evolutive state of this market. Like, we're gonna name things the wrong thing. We're gonna think quests are a cool word until We realize they're not a cool word, and then we're gonna go work elsewhere. All that kind of shit is just par for the course and part of us evolving as a market, and we'll get there. And like, I'm all for it. Like, rebrand the hell out of all of this. We shouldn't even call it Web3 anymore. We should call it crypto games, according to like FaZe Banks, right?
Well, FaZe Banks, after running his company so beautifully, why wouldn't we take his advice? Parallels, Koji, over to you.
I mean, I think the word is mature. It's we're getting to a point where naming things after the like niche areas of our space, like DeFi and whatever, it's like over. I walk around Toronto and I still see remnants of restaurants and places around downtown that name themselves after the quote unquote the six, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, what a nightmare. And so I think that like we're seeing the same sort of thing happen in Web3, where it's just like, okay, let's stop being self-referential and actually put on our big boy pants and name ourselves a proper company, and that's just kind of what's happening. So, I mean, overall, I think it's smart. Unless you've built up a big enough brand around your name, why not change it?
In some cases, I agree. Guildfi turning into Zentry does seem like putting on your big boy pants. D-Race turning into ZK Race actually feels like they're leaning even more into a narrative that is temporary. I don't see us thinking about ZK anything 5 years from now. We're just going to know it's the underlying technology. Also, I can't believe nobody mentioned that I called Toronto the snowy Silicon Valley in the intro. That's absolutely what it's called, not the six. Sinjin, over to you. What's the word for all these rebrands in Web3?
Utah is called Silicon Slopes. You guys heard that before?
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
I think opportunistic and a bunch of gutless wanks for the most part. And the reason being that exactly that, like ZK, whatever the fuck, and all these things, like all these guys who were rebranding, they were fuck nuts to go for the short term, and then they're either going to get a grant from wherever they're at, and they're pivoting. And so being in Dubai, I got to meet all these market makers and these agencies or whatever. And I'm like, and this came up, a rebrand, and they said, "Oh, that's fantastic! You know how many projects we have that have rebranded because that's what people want to hear. They want to hear what the trend is, and it's no problem." And these guys are smiling at me, and they're like telling me, "This is no fucking problem at all. Rebrand, and people like the narrative. Hey, fucking go for it. If we can get grant money from whoever we're on the chain with, and we rebrand, that's great." I'm like, great to know that this is all going alive and well. The opportunistic short-term nature to fucking get whatever they can is good. And for a game and stuff like that, you're gonna rebrand fucking games that like take, especially you're building out in the open, and they take 2 to 3 years at a minimum to really get off the ground. Like, fuck these guys.
Icy in the comments says I didn't have Koji dissing the six on my bingo card. Maybe next week. Jerry, I'm going to you, then Kevin.
Yeah, I think in some ways it's necessary. Guildfi, listen, a year ago, everybody on this panel was calling Web3 gaming or crypto gaming GameFi, and things like that need to change, right? So Guildfi, it's a good change. DeFi Mons to Spellborn, that sounds like a way cooler game just on name alone. D-Race to ZK Race is really stupid, I think, because it's like, I think people are still going to be just as confused or not know what it is just on like name alone. So like going from like decentralized racing to ZK race is, I don't know. That one just doesn't make sense to me. So if you're going to rebranding's fine. I don't think anybody cares about people rebranding. If you're going to rebrand, do it to something better, not something equally as ambiguous and unknown.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. Kevin, for Planet Atmos.
The word is circumstantial. I totally agree with what Jerry just said. It is very much a case by case basis, right? Anything we've had a problem in this space for a long time of naming things after technical things that have no business in front of end users ever. And so for that reason, right, renaming something with ZK in the title seems completely asinine. But on the other side of it, I think the other two sounded like good, intelligent moves that are well thought out. So treat each one individually.
Well said. And on that note, just to add a little bit more shading to the Guildfi rebrand as Zentry, I noticed that they moved from their Twitter account with like 140K to a new Twitter account, which is unique. Usually people like wipe their entire history and rebrand the Twitter account that has the following. And I think part of that might be to regain some momentum in the algorithm from Twitter. I'm not 100% sure about that, but it seems like they're trying to basically get a bunch of momentum on a brand new account that can break through because all their posts on the previous account were dead. Lems, I'll go to you, then Wild Paul gets the last word.
My word is goldfish, because all the participants in Web3 have an incredible short-term memory, and it's like Sinjin said, like rebrands are bullish because people don't remember that this project existed before. Like the amount of projects I've heard from 2021 that are just rebranding under a new name, and people think it's a new thing and get all excited because they think it's a shiny new thing. It's kind of hilarious. I think there's some other valid reasons for like rebranding. Other panelists mentioned them. But I think it's just so funny that market participants all just get excited over a new thing, and something that's been building for the last few years is less exciting than a shiny new thing.
Paul, the final word.
I think you guys heard it through all the comments. It's extremely circumstantial. So there's like a super lame version of this where it's just like a company just randomly kind of zigzagging around to try to like get that fresh new moment again and the shiny new thing that attracts Web3 users. That version is super bearish and sucks. There can be a good version of this though, like the more mature version. The example that came to mind for me as we were talking about all this is more of a gaming example, but it's Rocket League. So for you guys who know, the game was originally called Rocket Powered Battle Cars, and that it was almost all the fun that exists in Rocket League today was there. There were a couple things wrong about the length of matches and how goals were scored and things that made it so that game couldn't catch on. But the team knew that they had something really special in this idea of remote control cars knocking a soccer ball around. And so they stuck with it, but they also knew that they didn't get it right the first time. And so what they needed to do is reset expectations. So they went back to the drawing board. They said, we have to fix this. We're not going to change the core formula, but there's something here that's so compelling. And when they relaunched it, they renamed it because that was appropriate to the changes they made and how much they changed about that expectation, that it was worth resetting and saying, guys, let's consider this a start over and see if you like this new game, and that is kind of based on the foundation of what we built before, but we think we've made enough changes to justify this being a completely new thing. That's a mature version of it. That's very bullish because that team had conviction and they stuck with it. They knew what they had was fun and they broke through by doing that. And they made the right decision by renaming it, because sticking with that old name, people had already made up their mind about that game and moved on and said, that's not what I want to play. And so they needed to reset that expectation because, they sort of deserved to do it because they went back to the drawing board and they fixed those things that weren't right about Rocket Power Battle Cars. So that's the bullish version, but you really have to take it case by case, like Lems was saying.
Man, I can't think of a better rebrand than that one, because holy shit, that previous
No,
name
Rocket Power
sucked.
Battle Cars is the best name, though.
That's such a good name.
So from my previous life, we have Musically turning into TikTok, and we saw how that shook out. We're moving on to the next topic, but real quick, after this next topic, I'm going to give away the first Cityverse whitelist to somebody who's retweeted the space, so get it in if you haven't yet. Change My Mind, re-releasing old games with Web3 integrations isn't a good strategy. Old Web2 games, I should be specific on that. Cardano founder bought a 2018 game and is re-releasing it with Web3 on Galachain. Their key strategy is approaching the developers of old PC titles and helping them, quote, introduce them to the Web3 world, unquote. Originally launched in 2018, their new game Overload, or new, I guess, and also quotes, this game is hailed from some of the creators of old school classic shooters like Descent. I've never heard of Descent, so I wouldn't call it a classic either. They said, we worked with a team to license the game and introduce features for Web3 audiences. According to Decrypt, a shout out to Decrypt for the article. Overload is currently available for Steam, on Steam for $30 with nearly 1,500 positive reviews. Voyager Ascension is launching as purely a single player experience, but as Overload, again, the version of it that's on Steam, they have a multiplayer mode already available, and multiplayer will be coming to the Web3 version, quote, soon. Change My Mind, acquiring Web2 games and slapping Web3 on them is a negative for the space. A ton of hands on this one. I didn't see when they came up, so I'm going to go to Koji first.
I put my hand up because you not knowing what Descent is absolutely fucking egregious. What
Wow.
a terrible thing to have happened. It's like the first sort of like 3D 360 shooter in the world of like Quake and, around that era. What a fucking incredible game. I was like, I'm so blinded by that I don't even know what you asked. Oh yeah. I'm not going to change your mind because I think that it's kind of silly. Like we already have those games and they're great. I don't know if we need like what if this game but Web3. So yeah, I say keep your mind where it is.
Dub, your thoughts? Am I an asshole for not knowing what dissent is, and is this a bad idea?
We're both assholes because I don't know what dissent is either.
Thank you.
But I mean, for me, the idea of trading my shiny Pikachu for 5 million Ethereums sounds fucking great to me. So, like, anyone saying that it's not a good idea can fuck right off. And just because these economies that are old can't handle degeneracy that we have today doesn't mean we shouldn't at least try it.
All right, Paul Bettner tagging you in next.
Oh my gosh, I have so many opinions on this. Guys, Scrabble was a game that nobody gave a shit about until the particular set of technologies, platforms, and opportunities came along to suddenly make that game something that could be just a massive hit in a brand new way because of mobile phones. And I built a company, sold it for $180 million by literally just taking the Scrabble board, rotating it by 45 degrees, and putting it on an iPhone. So I think, and just so you know, and this is why I have a lot to say about this. Part of the reason why that even happened is because we were sitting around as you know, me, my brother, my wife, and being like, we're just this tiny little company. We have no money. If we have to go through the expensive, hard, time-consuming part of game development that is finding the fun for a brand new type of game and formula, we are definitely going to go out of business. Like, there's no way we can do that. So instead, we need to just kind of plumb the depths of like, public domain games, things that we know are already fun, and then figure out how this new technology is going to make those things, like, reinvigorate those things, allow those things to come to life in a new way that they couldn't be until this new technology showed up. And we stack ranked like a bunch of games that were in the public domain, from chess to Scrabble to Risk to whatever else, and we're like, hey, let's go. And like this way, we don't have to worry about like, is this game fun or not, because we already know it's fun. But now we have to decide, is this game suddenly made much more fun, much more cool, much more valuable, much more engaging, and because of the fact that it's going to be on an iPhone. And that's how we built that stack rank. I think that there's a world of games that didn't hit their mark, weren't what they could have been, because blockchains, smart contracts, and crypto wasn't an available thing, wasn't a technology that where these tools and capabilities were available. That suddenly, if you go and you find those games that with that particular ingredient added to them are suddenly one of the best things ever, like that's a phenomenally good idea, in my opinion.
I really, really appreciate that alternative perspective because I hadn't thought about it that way before, Paul. And you couldn't be more correct that with the new technology, it actually could have unlocks for these games that make them even more incredible. I do have to give a shout out. Josh P. from Bornless and McChillin both dropped a comment reminding us that Rocket League was actually not called rocket-powered battle cars. It was called supersonic acrobatic rocket-powered battle cars, which is the most egregious thing I've ever seen in my
I love
entire
that. I
life.
forgot the first part of that. I only got the second half of it right. Oh my
That
gosh!
is
Thank
absolutely
you.
insane. Back on topic, over to Sinjin.
Actually, I got to disagree with Paul here for once, because Paul's selling himself a little short here. Because I do recall from Paul's stories that Scrabble actually launched online their mobile version first, which was just a port, and it was shit. And Paul's brother was going to give up hope and jump off a bridge, and then they actually tried it, and it was just
You are
so fucking
totally
shitty.
right. And
Yeah,
just to defend myself a little bit, in the act of, number one, finding that thing that the new technology really, really applies to, but then combining those two ingredients together, that peanut butter and jelly, if you don't do that well, it won't work at all, and it's the worst idea ever. So you have to
that's
not
right.
only find that thing that applies, but then apply it correctly for any of that stuff to work.
That's right. And, like the one great thing about spending the last month traveling is that I got to meet with a lot of other game developers. And, sometimes there would be a big party going on and I would just be sitting with one or two guys the whole like time as the music was pumping, and we would just have like discussions. And this topic actually came up and I've thought a lot about it. Just because like people would ask me, like, what would be the best way for an existing studio to kind of jump in? Could they take some of their old IP and then get back into it in this slap on some Web3 stuff. And I think the two things are that when you look at remastered games and them relaunching, and we were very nostalgic about it, and it looks wonderful, but like the remastered StarCraft, they're still using the same UI UX that they did back in the day, and it just feels so archaic. And with Diablo 2 being remastered, the discovery is not there. It's fun for a few moments, and then playing with my kids and getting them nightmares after playing Diablo 2 was really interesting. I guess I'm a really terrible parent, but it wasn't good. It wasn't good because the IP has been played out. It's been known, and so unless that IP, really isn't known to the existing audience right now, and there's something really to add to it, and not remaster it, but really remake it and reshape it, like Paul did with Words with Friends, where it's optimized entirely to what Web3 is. Then I think it's no bueno. You know, and I think the other part of this is that we talk about like Web 2.5, or we talk about just slapping on the economy and it's going to work. For myself, and the way that I approach the game development in Web3 is that every aspect of my gameplay is tied to the open economy issue. Because I think the open economy issue is such a fucking huge problem. In fact, I don't think anyone's really solved it definitively yet. And we have a lot of intelligent, super intelligent polymath motherfuckers in this space. And so going down this road, I think that unless you're prepared to like really remake the game, like if I was taking an up and coming indie game that maybe hadn't done great, slightly incomplete, but I could see how Web3 would, really augment that significantly. Yeah, maybe. But taking an existing IP and then trying to figure that out, because these games were designed at that era for specifically with, the economic tools or the understanding at that time. To bring it forward would be kind of like, okay, I'm gonna take this, whatever Ford Mustang 69 or whatever like that, and I'm gonna turn it into a Tesla. Yeah, maybe it could work, but maybe it's just you just fucking destroyed that fucking beautiful car.
Yeah, well put. There's a couple of great comments here as well. Cesar Martinez says, "That's it. Paul sold me on the idea. I'm bringing Minesweeper to Web3. I look forward to that." NFT Calf also says, "Agree with Paul. Sometimes there's only one missing link that holds you back. The ability to trade items between players, while a shallow take could change tons and tons of games." Great comments from both these guys. Ed Chang, head of gaming at AVAX, curious about your thoughts of slapping Web3 on Web2 titles.
I disagree with Paul as well. One of the first times, but I think we're actually saying the same thing, because in Paul's example, he actually did take a classic game and put a unique spin on it, both through tech and the way he's positioning it, right? Like online multiplayer, app store, a new platform in mobile, like very different than classic maybe web or in-person Scrabble, right? And I think the problem is most of the times when a Web3 studio or publisher raises a little bit of money and then says, we're going to go acquire this game, literally what they do is they attach a token to it, and they're just like, cool, like this is my new Web3 game version of this. And it almost always falls flat on its face. Or someone tries to build a Steam or addicting games of Web3, and they just collect a bunch of these really crappy Web2 casual games, and they're like, we'll do a token across all of this. How come no one's coming to play this, right? So I think when done right, it's almost arguably as hard as just building a game from the ground up, because of some of those reasons that St. John said. Like, you have to think about the token economy. You have to think about like the NFTs. Like, what is the new content? Why would someone play this Web3 version versus Web2? The on ramps and things like that. And honestly, like here's a little shameless plug for our ecosystem. There's a team called Seed and Network. I've seen them do it really well in our ecosystem. They acquired like Rainy, the card game, the studio, when they spun out the AI studio, and they spent so much time rebranding, thinking about the IP. It's not cheap, and you can't do it with a small amount of money, and you have to be very thoughtful about it. So I think when done right, it can work, but most of these people don't have the money or the patience or the expertise to actually revamp a Web2 property for Web3, and then it leaves a bad taste in everybody's mouth.
Great points there, Ed. And Yukin says you're missing out on RuneScape as a great Web 2 game now to be Web 3. I just had to say that so Nock can be extra jealous whenever he listens back that he wasn't here to talk about it. Kevin from Planet Atmos, curious about your thoughts adding Web 3 into Web 2 games.
I love that Sinjin brought up Tesla swapping a Mustang, because I was actually, my example the whole time I had my hand raised was actually I was at a car show recently and somebody Tesla swapped a early 90s FD RX-7, which if anyone knows is an absolutely beautiful car, but that ran on a rotary engine, which is a really weird piece of, fantastic piece of engineering. All that being said, I I think if you're acquiring a game or IP and you're expecting to start the race 10 yards from the finish line and you're just slapping on a token, it's an absolute miss 10,000% of the time, right? But if you're going to gut it and you're going to go back and say, what's good inside this IP? What can I use from an engineering standpoint, from an IP standpoint, from a technology standpoint? What did whatever piece of IP here get right? What did the original game get right? And then you're going to gut it and put together that with Web3 from the ground up. And you're not saying I'm starting at the 98% point. I'm starting at the 40% point, but I'm using some of this core. Then you can come out with a pretty fantastic product at the end. But it is so much a reliant, just like anything else. If you're building from scratch, it's reliant on you having a really solid plan and going, I understand what my capes are here, and then building up from those pieces. So I think we're all kind of saying the same thing in and around that. But I love that the Tesla swap example was already brought up. Hell yeah.
Man, getting this perspective from all of my favorite founders is just my absolute favorite thing about Gamified. So appreciate each of all of you. Jerry from Uptick, over to you.
Yeah, let me add to piling up on telling Paul he's wrong. I think which I don't really want to tell Paul why his model worked. I think he understands it better than I ever will. But I think it's not really a direct one-to-one comparison, because I think at the time when like the with friends model really popped off, right? Like Scrabble was a game that you could only play with somebody else with you, and you'd rather play a million other board games before you played Scrabble anyway. But what mobile unlocked was accessibility and ease with friends, right? And I don't think that the Web3 attachments to games is really going to unlock like the same thing, because it's not unlocking ease or accessibility, right? If anything, it's adding difficulty and friction to things.
Yeah, the word
Um,
we used to use
yeah,
was convenience. That was like the
yeah,
number one defining feature that we thought mobile added to it, which is like it's just a shorter version of ease and accessibility. By the way, I think you're completely
yeah,
right. That is not the thing in Web3.
yeah.
Convenience is the furthest thing from what we experience in
Yeah,
crypto.
we add like layers, and we make it exponentially more difficult to just get into a game, right? And I think like I do, and everybody who probably works for a chain or as like a Web3 publisher has thought about like, should I go to itch and find like some game, or should I find some like old Steam games that were really popular a few years ago, and can I bring them back, like hit those devs up and acquire that IP and then have people start to build it. But I think those games, maybe they have like good core loops, and like aspects of games get attractive. But then if you're taking just like one or two parts of a game and then building out other things around it, you're really starting to like play Frankenstein. And I don't know if any of you guys have ever like read the classic by Mary Shelley, but Frankenstein looked like shit. And I think that there's a lot of it, I can see why it would be very attractive to start to want to do that, but I think it's not really going to be something that works, like in the way that we all think. What I think we're all attracted to is games that couldn't exist without blockchain, and those games all existed without it, right? So if you're just taking parts of it and then adding blockchain, it gets really confusing. And I think the games that are going to do that well are the teams like MapleStory. They already have a sticky IP. They already have a sticky game loop. They already have everything going for them, and now they can further those things with blockchain. But I don't think acquiring games is really the way to go. But that game does. I watched the trailer. It looks fucking awesome. So maybe I'm wrong.
Crimson Caravan Company in the comments says, when mass adoption is set in, Web 2 and Web 3 gaming will be indistinguishable, except Web 3 games will have blockchain tied on the back end with systems in place to interact with that blockchain. So if someone wanted to, you could add Web 3 to any game. You just need to tie them together. I'm going to send it over to my co-host, Lems, but real quick, AE is going to win the first Cityverse whitelist for retweeting the space. Appreciate you, AE Mac. Lems, over to you.
I'm basically in the same boat as Ed Chang, kind of saying like you don't just reskin and evolve and like do something unique with it. But my big question is, no one has talked about like how the Cardano founder is moving this game and launching it on Gala. Is that bearish for the game because it's so bad he doesn't want it on his own chain, or bearish for Cardano because they can't actually put the game on their chain?
That's a fantastic question. Koji has the hand up. Over to you.
I don't want to answer that question because I don't have one. But I actually just wanted tell an anecdote here because I'm just going to contradict everything I said earlier. Early on in the life cycle of Parallel, I was talking with some people in our Discord, and we came up with the idea of moving Pogs to the blockchain and then creating a Pogs-like game in which you could essentially gamble your Pog NFTs off with one another. And we were like, this is gonna be sick. You know, it has all the right plays. I even have some art that maybe I can share later or whatever. Like, we went so far down the rabbit hole, and then the actual Pog company was like, we're doing this, so fuck off, basically. And we're like, oh, okay, well, we can't do it then. We were gonna call it, we were gonna call it JPogs, and then they were just like, no, you can't use Pogs, and we're just like, okay, well, I guess we're fucked then. But so I guess like everything I say on this space, take with a grain of salt, because it turns out it's complete bullshit. It's actually the opposite. I think there are some old games that you could probably revamp that would be a hell of a lot of fun on blockchain, especially with the things that it enables. But I do agree with everybody else that you have to be ultra creative if you're going to do it.
Yeah,
Koji, I
nothing
literally just
here.
got followed by the Pog Digital account while on this space. You let me know if you want me to slide into those DMs for you.
Nothing you hear today is financial advice, but I would fucking guarantee that a PFP collection called JPogs would absolutely rip.
Such a good name.
Sam, I'll send you some of our test art if I can dig it up, and you can share it or whatever.
Alright, thanks, man. That'd be incredible. Dub from Shrapnel, then to Sinjin for the last word.
It's fucking hilarious because I've literally played that like beta of Pogs back at Solana, played GG and met with the team and the whole shebang. But for me, what I wanted to point out here was that I think the value prop that blockchain is bringing to like this game experience that can like reinvigorate Web2 games in a really cool way will be actually the viewer experience and how they interact with the game they're watching. I know Paul's going to throw a shit ton of emojis after I said that, because that's exactly what Wildcard has been like championing and pioneering. And on my side at Shrapnel, I've spent like meeting after meeting saying like, hey, have you seen what Wildcard is doing for the viewer experience? And now our team is thinking about that, looking at that. And it really is going to be a big value prop, I think, is just for the viewers of these games, let alone not just the players.
Great stuff from Dub. Sinjin, and then I see Wild Paul got the hand up as well.
You know, if you were to talk about which Web3 game probably had the most potential and everyone ended up crying after it got shut down, would be Grand Saga, right? And you know, it's a Korean team. You know, it's IP. They're doing a fantastic job. You know, they got all the right people. I remember I was fucking around there with my big dude with Dub, and we're a big dude in it together in the game. And I think the main issue is that in Web3, we automatically assume that if we Web3 augment something, it's going to be better, rather than thinking, what does Web3 actually solve in Web2, right? And then case in point with Maple Story or Maple Universe at this point, right? If you haven't been following Maple Story, the original game, there's the one dude who was actually on the Nexon main homepage, and he was doing the stream, and he had like fucking grinded this motherfucker for like, I don't know, 60 months or whatever. And he was at like level like 59.999. He's gonna make it, and he says, "Fuck you, Nexon, and fuck you, Maple Story, because you haven't listened to anything that anyone has said. You know, these need to be tradable items. We need to like figure out how to fix the economy. There's 100,000 things that need to be done." Obviously, I don't think he was aware of Maple Universe, and so for Maple Story and Maple Universe, I mean, it solves a problem they had in the Web 2 side, right? And so for Web3, the value add is very clear for a game that definitely needed to get to that next level, right? Whereas, like, if a game existed on its own, it was successful on its own as it was, or as it were, and then to move into Web3, and unless we really gutted it or whatever like that, or you saw not Web3 augmentation, but whereas like you would see that Web3 actually solve something that was lacking in that game of that era, then maybe, right? But it's a big ask, and if you don't think like Megapixel didn't do their homework on it, of course they did, right? But they still decided to shut it down because maybe they didn't see that this was going to be the 10x they wanted compared to their existing IP that they could have invested in. So it has been done. It has been done by a fantastic team already, but we've seen the outcome of that, and I hope that Avalanche and Maple Story Universe really is the kind of test case and the gold standard for that moving forward of really having solved something in a game that it did exist in and is beloved, and took it to the fucking really next level.
Yeah, there was a really cool moment whenever I saw that story. It was level 299. He had spent, I think, 3 years or close to 3 years leveling up to that point and then refused to hit level 300 as sort of a protest. And there was a comment that said, unironically, Web3 fixes this, which we have seen plenty of times. But it's been very rare that somebody has said that. And actually, the Web3 product has been known and being developed. So it was really, really cool to be able to see that everything is already in place and it's just a matter of time before that solution is actually implemented. Wild Paul, tagging you in.
I just wanted to say it's so sweet. It warms my heart that because Knock isn't here, and Knock is always the guy that takes the opposing view and says that I'm wrong. That you all picked up the slack for him because you miss him so much that everybody jumped in on that party and everybody wanted to play the part of Knock, and I just think that's really sweet. I miss him too. And then the last thing I want to say is I'm glad you also all kind of came around to what I was saying, which is, and I said it wrong. It's not really about like going and finding some like old DOS game and just like putting Web3 in it and resurrecting it. It's actually probably, I think said more correctly, like that there are formulas, that there are kind of like core game formulas that have existed, that are maybe just evergreen, that maybe never saw their full potential because their full potential is unlocked by the technologies that blockchain and crypto and smart contracts finally make available. And I do think that there is a wealth of those ideas that can be dug up, and don't go copy a brand that is actively defending itself like Pog, because you're always going to end up with that outcome. Find something that is open source if you want to do that, or like truly where the IP and the formula, the mechanic is not owned by anyone. Like Spades, or like possibly like Minesweeper. I don't actually know if that's owned by anyone. Hopefully it isn't. And that's what I was really trying to make the case for.
I
Don't tell me what to do.
with my curiosity, I absolutely have to double click on something real quick though. The audacity of everybody to call you out as if you didn't do this already with a game that has 500 million downloads at least, and they're calling
Well,
you the
the
asshole.
other sweet part of it is they all basically said, "Don't do it unless you're Paul. Paul could probably do it, but don't do it otherwise." So
The
I
other
love that
thing
too. Thank you.
I have to double click on here, Paul, and just ask you, if you had to gander a random percentage of games that are built in Web 2, let's take the top 10% of games that are actually successful and ignore the 90% that fail on a yearly basis. Of those 10% of games, what percentage do you think is maybe actually ripe for Web 3 and
Oh my
implementing the
gosh.
technology in a meaningful way? Is it a
Oh
lot
my.
or is it like almost none?
It's almost none. I got to tell you, my experience so far in this space is that building something that is natively going to take advantage of what crypto is great for requires such deep thought and careful consideration that if you didn't start with that question at the beginning or while you were building the game, that your ability to just like add that in as a factor at the end is just going to never end up in a good place.
All right, well, that pretty much answers the question then. Thanks, man. I'm Ember. I'll give you the final word, then we move on.
I appreciate you, man. I got so lost in everybody's amazing answers, but I wanted to kind of rebuttal what Jerry said about how Wild Paul's like Words with Friends was so well timed that it really made like the social element much more accessible, and I think that's very true. But I would also argue, we were saying Web3 is like not accessible at all. It's definitely not right now. But I do think that the social aspect of Web3 and on-chain game assets is an extremely strong point that gets overlooked often. And the idea and concept of simply being able to take your game items out of game into other platforms, into other experiences in itself can be an extremely strong factor for a game to leverage Web3 technology to boost just a regular old game. I don't think it even needs to get much more complex than that, but it does kind of require external third-party infrastructure to support other types of social interactions with those game items. But that's something I'm super excited about.
I just got to double down on that real quick. Because this doesn't get talked about much at all, or at least not that I hear of. Like, there's something inherently social about crypto that I think isn't recognized often enough. When we all become owners of an asset, or a coin or an NFT, like it inherently brings us together in a community, and it feels connecting. It feels social, and I don't think that aspect of crypto is sort of leveraged enough or taken advantage enough in products. But I completely agree with what Ember was just saying.
Yeah, I honestly think that often what we think is financially motivated, for most people, it's social.
It
More.
actually always is. I mean, my experience tells me that is 100% true.
Yeah.
Really great point there, boys. Sinjin, real quick, 15 seconds.
Yeah, I'm gonna eat some druid blood right now. I'm just gonna drink it and spill it all over my face.
No, bro.
Yeah. No, I think guys, please, and the people listening in the comments, just because an asset is tradable and then we are all like patting ourselves on the back that this is more social, it's going to work for a Web3 game opposed to the Web2 version. You guys are wrong. You guys are fucking wrong, because it's not a 10x. It's really not going to move the needle. I guess one example I want to give in just general terms is, online poker. Okay, so online poker and Web3 poker hasn't worked, and from the beginning of fucking
I'm sorry, Sinjin, I said 15 seconds, and that's going to be like a 7-minute story. We got to get through the show. Ladies and gentlemen, lend your ears to the lore of a Leviathan, the bulwark of the blockchain, the behemoth named Avalanche. This colossus in the crypto climate carves through confusion with the clarity of a comet. Avalanche is pioneering as a pathfinder, a prodigious paradigm shifter in the pulsing heart of our digital destiny, and proudly proclaimed as the official blockchain of gamified. Seated securely at the summit of sophistication, Avalanche's subnets serve as a specialized sphere, allowing architects to sculpt and scale solutions with sovereign specificity. These subnets are the stellar scaffolds that support a spectrum of specialized scenarios. Strap in for an odyssey like no other with Shrapnel, the stellar standout in the official game of gamified. This isn't just a game, it's an extraction shooter with a ballistic system so sophisticated your bullets don't just hit, they ricochet, turning every shootout into a deadly ballet of bouncing lead. But Shrapnel is far more than just firepower, it's fury, because you're not just fighting for glory, you're fighting for gear. Own your assets and extract the next level equipment, crafting a war chest that's as enviable as it is effective. And let's not overlook the cosmic cornerstone of connectivity, Stardust, the official infrastructure of gamified. This invisible, ingenious innovation isn't just a tool, it's a white label wonder that weaves the simplicity of Web 2 with the wizardry of Web 3. Imagine the ease of the internet fused with the frontier of the future, commanding a constellation of over 150 chains in every single EVM, including Avalanche. Stardust stands sovereign as the supreme steward of your in-game gold and steadfast guardian of your gamers' gains. They shoulder the logistics and liability, ensuring that your treasures traverse the digital divide safely and securely. We move on to the next topic. Hero or villain, Web3's biggest critic, Jauwn, I still don't know how to say it, who made the hour-long video eventually rating Parallel a 47 out of 100. For context, Splinterlands received a 12 out of 100. That one's a little harsher. He also claims that they absolutely dropped the ball, Parallel, in this context, by not making the game, quote, very rewarding to free-to-play players. And in a video called it, quote, a Hearthstone clone, which I personally found fucking insane if anybody's ever played both of those games. Koji responded with the video, or by saying the video is fine, and it does pinpoint some valid issues, but it's also pretty clear that from a lot of the content and comments, there's an inherent bias towards Web3 games from our space. Honestly, it's a shame, he said. And with that being said, is Jauwn a hero for giving Web3 exposure to Web2, or a villain for his biased reviews against Web3 games? Sinjin, I'll tag you in first on this one.
All right. I think I super respect the dude I think he goes above and beyond in his videos and stuff like that. And I did watch it, and I've watched all his videos, and I think he had a lot of valid comments. I think he is biased, obviously, because he's coming from that Web 2 aspect of it. But the guy actually tries to deposit. He actually tries to play all these games, not just parallel. And I think that's the standard at which we have to hold ourselves to eventually, right? As early adopters in the space, we're not going to hold ourselves to that standard quite just yet. But I think it's a good milestone or lighthouse at the very least.
Dub from Shrapnel.
Yeah, I was super impressed. The video changed my perspective on this guy. First of all, I was super disappointed that he didn't include the match between me and him where I smoked him and then tweeted about smoking him and that whole social impact of what's cool about Parallel. He missed that. But it also made me realize, because I play the game so damn much and I'm so obsessed with it, how much that you had to be in the weeds to understand how Parallel works, because he was so wrong on a couple of his key arguments, specifically around glints and how he wasn't aware that you can get glints during tournaments, for example, and was claiming that that was a predatory thing. But everything that he laid out was eye-opening to me, and I was like, holy crap, I've been suffering through UI and UX hell, thinking that that was part of the game and not something that I could say could be changed. And it made me realize that hey, this isn't the perfect, amazing game that I've been playing the whole time. There is room for improvement, and it was really eye-opening for me. And it also made me more critical on our just user journey and all of that kind of stuff for Shrapnel as well. So this dude is a major hero for me personally.
Wow, surprised to hear it. Koji, you've been dragged by Reddit. Now you're dragged by Jauwn. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I got a lot of thoughts, a lot of complicated thoughts. First of all, I think that this guy needs to be given all the credit in the world, because as St. John said, he goes above and beyond. He looks at a lot of things. And now, obviously, I'm so close to the project that it's impossible for me to be hey, you missed this, you missed that, you missed this. Obviously, I'm gonna say that because I'm but maybe it's my fault that that stuff is missed, right? If he didn't get it, it's because it's not obvious enough. So I think that that's part of it as well. But I also think that there's some disingenuous behavior with the video. It's kind of you can equate it to InfoWars and Alex Jones or whatever. He's playing to his base. He knows that the people who are watching his videos, for the most part, are anti-Web3. So he's going to spew a bunch of well, this is nonsense because it's Web3 type stuff. And I'll say this, buried in not in the comments, but in the description of the video, he does say in text a bunch of really fair stuff. But part of me questions as to whether or not that stuff is there, just so if somebody's hey, fuck you, man, he can be what about this? I put this in text here. No, just fucking say it in the video if that's how you actually feel. But I'm maybe nitpicking. I think that we have to realize that at the end of the day, he's a content creator, so he's doing his job. We're sitting here talking about it, right? So I think that that's part of this as well. And most importantly, it highlights that there's a lot of shit that we need to do. I mean, I know about this. My biggest complaint about our game is the UI UX, and that's why it makes me super uncomfortable when people say good things about the game. But I think that it really made it hit home for a lot of people in the Parallel sphere. And so I'm hoping that I can use that momentum to push forward a lot of positive change in the game and in the client and in the overall Parallel experience. Because I mean, I don't think that there's truly such thing as bad criticism, so long as it's not as long as it's honest criticism. So for my part, I'm just trying to take it all in and ingest it. And I did comment on his video, like you said, but I also just posted his video, on my Twitter without much comment at all. I didn't say anything positive or negative, really. And I really just wanted people to watch it, because I do think that for all the things that I didn't like about it, it's important that it's out there and that people see it.
Appreciate that level-headed perspective, Koji. I don't know how you do it without getting emotional at all. I would definitely not be able to do that myself. I'll send it over to Lems next.
I will say he is the hero that we maybe don't think we need. I will say sometimes he's a bit disingenuous, kind of like Koji said. He comes into it with a bias of like not liking Web3 games, and his audience are like that. But I've stumbled on the guy like before he actually blew up and watched some of his videos and was interested because he actually gave a lot of fair criticism that was reasonable. Sometimes it's a bit disingenuous because he's reviewing it like the game is totally polished and they might be in an early access state, or it's actually closed alpha and it's not even like easy to get access. You have to get a code and stuff like that. But there's a lot of dog shit games out there, right? And he shreds them, and like fairly so. There's many games that are just asset packs. We've talked about it here before, and that's why the space has a bad name. So I would say like we need people like that in the space because we have a lot of sponsored content and things like that that come out from the space that are biased on the other side, where we turn a blind eye to certain things in Web3 and we say, oh, like it will be fixed later and it will get better. And sometimes it's just good to have the reality check and have someone come through and be really critical. There was someone in the Wolves who had said like, hey, if like he comes at it with an educated lens of like he understands game development, if you had to pay a game dev to go and like critically give you feedback on your game, you'd probably spend quite a bit of money and maybe like 20 hours of them going through the game and finding critical feedback, and you can actually gain a lot of value from his videos. You just have to kind of take a step back and not just get like triggered if it's a negative comments around things, and see what you can actually glean from it and then make your game better. And that's the approach Koji is like taking from it, which is awesome.
Very well said, Lems. Appreciate that. Josh the Salty MF. Hopefully this makes you less salty. I'm giving you a Hexacore Silver Pass for retweeting the space. Appreciate you, man. We're also joined by the beloved Kate Irwin. Would love to have you chime in on this subject as well. First, I'll go to Sinjin because he has the hand up.
Koji, I've seen all his videos. I've been following him since, more than a year or so. And after I saw that video, I was even more bullish on Parallel. Because if you see his other videos and how he eviscerates other games, like, holy shit, like, you guys are the fucking nuts compared to whatever. And how good this guy is. He actually was reviewing this one crypto game, and he was like, what the fuck, man? This gameplay is fucking awesome. I haven't even seen this kind of gameplay in a Web3 game ever. And he's like, but there's no way this could be really a Web3 game. And he goes in the code and he finds out that this was actually a ripoff of, an open source third party shooter that's been like a first person shooter that's been in development for like 7 years on the open. And then they actually like contact the dev, and then the Web3 game was actually using their same servers and shit like that because they couldn't do shit with it. And they uploaded whatever update that to fucking shut down that guy's game entirely. So what I wanted to say is that he definitely is biased. I mean, he is coming with that bias, but if you were to look at all the other reviews he's done, I mean, Parallel is fantastic. I mean, the stuff that he nitpicks on with you guys, I think to some degree is valid. Of course, the game economy stuff like this, he's gonna be really biased on the whale side, and it's not for his user base per se. But if you actually do watch it all, you can't come away without thinking that actually was super bullish. And my dream would be that, and I haven't approached him yet, but when I get to the point where I think it's good, if I could get even half of a favorable review like you guys did from Jauwn, I would think that would be fucking awesome.
Appreciate the level-headed respect that you guys are giving this guy. I'm inclined to agree with you, but there is a great comment from Cairo. He says, I disagree with anybody praising him. His takes are always heavily biased, and a lot of times he misconveys a lot of information to cater to people wanting to dunk on crypto. Impossible for me to respect him after he straight up lied in his dead drop review about multiple things. Thanks for chiming in, Cairo. Kate Irwin, I'm curious if you have any thoughts on this. If not, we'll move on to the next topic.
Hey, yeah. Hi everyone. It's been a minute. Yeah, I watched that video. I watched like basically all of it. I think towards the end I was like, okay, I get the point, and I sort of like scrubbed through it. So I've played Parallel. I've played some hours of it, but I'm not like an expert or anything. I really liked it when I played it. But I also think that some of his criticism was valid, and I get it. I get where he's coming from. I think everyone's biased. I think we're biased towards feeling a certain way about, certain types of games, and he's also biased in a different kind of way. And so I think like everyone has a bias. It's pretty it's pretty hard for anyone to be truly objective and neutral. And I think that even in the past that I've been too nice to games that I've covered. I think, we sort of in this early stage where there's like so few blockchain games, period, that we're just like way too nice and accepting, and we're sort of like, okay, like they can get away with having like shitty models because they're trying really hard with crypto and it takes like 5 times the amount of work to do all like the crypto stuff. And so I think yeah, there's definitely room for criticism, and I think smart devs will take the stuff that makes sense to them to incorporate into their changes, and then leave the sort of other stuff at the door that's not helpful. And so I think it's valid. Obviously, that guy has a bias. We all have biases though, and so I think it's up to us as viewers, as readers, as participants to sort of just make our own informed decisions at the end of the day. And yeah, I think some of his points were valid about parallel, but I also still think there's a lot of good things about that game.
Great stuff, Kate. Thanks for joining the panel. Koji has the hand up. I'll give him the final word on this one before we move on.
Yeah, I just want to clarify that I agree with Sinjin. I think that like while his reviews might have seemed scathing, it's also just like he's been a lot harsher in a lot of other stuff, and so I think that you can take it as a positive. It's like an early Pitchfork review when they were just like, "Hey, this album kind of sucks," instead of "This album's complete dog shit." It's probably not so bad. But I just want to reiterate that I think that like the two sides of this is he's playing it up for a given audience, but that's fine because like I think that any content creator who's worth a salt is gonna play to their base. So that bit of it makes sense. I don't really fault him for that. Like if you read a lot of the comments on the YouTube video from people, and I did because I hate myself. So you'll see that the majority of his viewers are like, yeah, fuck Web3, and so he's kind of has to give them what they want a little bit there. But I also think that we are a little bit too quick to be praiseworthy of some stuff, or maybe not quick enough to be critical of some stuff because of. I mean, we spend a lot of time in this space, so we know we're comparing Web3 games to Web3 games, and there's not a lot of like amazing things to compare to because it's so new, because it's so hard to do what we're trying to do, all this stuff. And so our lens is a little bit different. And so I think that we have to be, I can't believe I'm defending this fucking guy, but I think that we have to be a little bit objective about some of this content because, we're so far into the weeds of our own content and of all the stuff that we ingest that it's hard for us to really see Web3 games for what they are, which is compared to Web2 games, maybe not as good as we think.
God, how can you not love Koji, dude? He's just the best guy.
I was gonna say, you know that I texted Kate during that, and I was like, I have to work with Koji at some point in my career. Like, I just want to be on the same team with him. Also, I just had to say congratulations. You know what? Nobody said it, but I gotta say it. Congratulations. The attention is well deserved, and even if it's a pitchfork in some cases, or criticism in some cases, I love the momentum and I love the attention. And congratulations to you guys in parallel.
Hey, thanks, man.
I couldn't agree more. Big shout out to Parallel. We move on to bigger deal. Gatorade joins Rumble Kongz Stripe payment processing now usable on Subnets. I'm curious what you guys think. What's the bigger deal here? A massive Web2 company co-branding with a Web3 video game, or payment processing being simplified with Stripe on AVAX Subnets? I personally feel like we need much simpler payment processing than we do more integrations of companies, but I want to hear what you guys think. I'll go to Jerry first on this one.
Yeah, it's I think on its surface, Stripe is probably less sexy, but I think it moves the needle a lot more, right? One of the things I compare like easier payment processing to is like Face ID on Apple. You've never spent more on mobile apps than you have when all you had to do was double tap the side button. When you used to have to type in your fucking password every
Yeah.
time. You know what I mean? Yeah, like myself, I have probably spent 10 times the amount since I turned on Face ID and got a new iPhone where I can just double tap the side button, right? And like I remember when I used to play Dota 2 and I'd be in like a lobby before the game would start and it'd be like, here's a Shadow Shaman skin for like $1. And I'd be like, oh, that's fucking sick. I'm gonna click it. And then the time it took to like load up the Steam marketplace, I would be like, the game's gonna start. Can't use the skin this match anyway. I don't really want it anymore. So, and we have that, like we were just talking about between Paul and I in crypto, 100-fold worse, right? It's so hard to spend money in crypto sometimes. So anything that you can do to just make that time to consumer spend shortened, it's so important for people just as these businesses need to hit points where they're actually turning revenue. Like it's just so important to have those things be easier and easier to do. So I think it's not really sexy on its surface, but it's really, really important. Rumble Kong and Gatorade is cool, but like I haven't drank Gatorade since I was like fucking 14, and like Gatorade's not like Nike, or it's not like Adidas or whatever. It's cool, but it's a sugary sports drink that's really bad for you. So I just don't really see how that moves the needle a ton as far as like people going to want to play the game. Like I don't know any super Gatorade fans. Like I know people who wear nothing but Under Armour. I don't know anybody who's like fucking need me a Gatorade today. Like I need a cigarette, So that really doesn't do much for me.
I saw
So
Kate
yummy.
Irwin.
I'm gonna go have a Gatorade right after this.
I saw Kate Irwin unmute briefly, and I'm curious if she just happens to be the most diehard Gatorade fan on earth.
No, I was just saying I'm like the same thing, except like the most recent time I had Gatorade was when I got like really sick in Mexico and like needed to rehydrate. It just reminded me of that. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, and it's worse for you than like Pedialyte when you're hungover in those moments.
That's hilarious because the last time I had Gatorade was like 3 months ago in Belize when I had food poisoning. Koji, I'm tagging you in. What's the bigger deal? A Web 2 brand coming into Web 3 or Stripe processing payments on AVAX subnets?
The processing payments has to be the bigger deal by far. Any way that you can give me to turn my USDC into more useless shit that I don't need in my house, like I'm 100,000% in. So yeah, I mean it's huge, right? Like I think the reason why crypto is as big as it is right now isn't because of gaming, which breaks my heart, but it's obviously because of the financial element of it. So like anything that you can do to further that financial element is going to be much bigger deal than some brand getting into some game, right? Like how many people here remember Pepsi mics or whatever, the Pepsi mic drop? Like that's basically what we're talking about here. This might as well be like, I don't know. I can't think of something clever, but anyway, terrible idea. The Gatorade thing, great idea, allowing more people to transact with, in more ways with money, et cetera, et cetera. Good on Stripe.
I would say well said, but it wasn't. The point was solid, though. Sinjin, you unmuted. What's up?
Oh no, I'm so sorry, bro. That was a but unmute. But yeah, Stripe all the way. I mean, like, fuck, like MoonPay and all these other things, they don't fucking work properly. Like, I can't deposit with my U.S. like bank card, credit card, Amex, nothing. So like having Stripe being integrated directly is a huge thing because we're always talking about friction, but if the normies can't even get their fiat in, like what hope do we have?
I've never been closer to leaving Web3 than I was like the first month of crypto whenever I tried to use MoonPay and realized it was like a 27% fee. It was the most egregious thing I'd ever experienced in my whole life. Dub, tagging you in.
Yeah, I hate how much I agree with Jerry on this topic, but he freaking nailed it. Having an ease of onboarding into subnets is obviously a very huge deal for us at Shrapnel, and we're very stoked on everything Stripe is doing. Also, I do hate Gatorade as well because of the sugar, and sugar's the devil. But I actually used to work in sporting goods stores, which sold the iconic Gatorade 1 liter squeeze bottle. And let me tell you, there is some Gatorade maxis out there that would come looking for the Michael Jordan special edition from whatever that movie was with Donald Duck, and it just blew me away. So like I think there is a clientele there. I think it is the sneakerheads. I think that's why Kong is all about it, and I think it's a good swing for them. You guys just aren't part of the culture and understand that demographic.
Yeah,
If I had anybody on my list that was gonna be a Gatorade fiend, it was Dub. He kind of gives off the vibe that he like double fists cold cuts and Gatorade all day. So
head of gaming came back.
Sorry, I had to unmute to laugh because that was actually funny.
Every now and then you get one. And every 2 hours you get one, Jerry. Congrats, man. And
yeah,
Chang,
thanks
head of
for
gaming
saying I'm
came back.
actually.
Your
Yeah,
thoughts?
I mean, I won't rehash what everyone's saying about how big the Stripe kind of making a big push back into crypto is. Agree with everybody. The current fiat on ramp solutions just aren't great, and the firepower and resources and breadth of coverage that Stripe's going to offer is crazy. So we're obviously very excited about that. I think we always talk about you need to provide at least the same experience as a Web2 player has on whatever platform, and Stripe is going to help us get there. But I will say, I would not discount this kind of this Gatorade thing. The reason why everyone's crapping on Gatorade is probably a good reason why they're looking to do this. And this is arguably, I think, one of the biggest like integrations into a Web2 brand of a Web3 game that isn't like directly licensing something, right? Like a FIFA game or Web2 IP. And so it's big. And the fact that Rumble Kongz also has some pretty well-known players, NBA players on board. It's NBA playoffs right now. Paul George is still in the playoffs. Halliburton is in the playoffs. Unfortunately, Steph Curry and my Warriors are not. But I think they're going to do some really big things, and we really think about what's the real world opportunity to bring kind of Web2 players in. I think they have a really good shot at it. So just wanted to say a little piece for my RKL fam.
Shout out to the Rumble Kongs. We'll see how it shakes out, but definitely big news both directions. Lem's in the comments. Lem says, congrats on being funny today, Jerry. I guess we're due for another dry spell for a few weeks. And then Cesar Martinez says, wait, was that the sports analogy I heard? You cut off on my end. He's trying his best for bingo. I don't think we have a winner yet. Oh, I forgot I have to save a prize. We have one more thing to give away to commenters and retweeters, and then one more to give away for the winners of bingo. Last subject of the day: fair game or effed up. Big time wipes in-game items with which people purchase with real money. This is something that I know has been heavily discussed, but I think we have the best minds in Web3 gaming. So hopefully everybody has an opinion on it at this point. We could just share where we're at. I'm going to give us a little bit of an abridged version just in case people aren't up to date in the audience. Some people found a new way to exploit and duplicate cracked hourglasses, which are essentially locked big time tokens unlocked via gameplay. The assumption is too many of these were printed in the duplicated bug. If anybody's familiar with Diablo 2, for instance, like duping was a very prevalent problem. The wipe is to remove them from the system and start fresh so that people don't have an unfair advantage after utilizing this exploit. The problem is some innocent users are being affected by this wipe, and they're losing certain items in their inventory which they had paid real money for. The quote-unquote solution is dismantling these items before the cutoff and crafting them again afterwards. But there were server issues, and some accounts had too many to be able to dismantle them all in time. Is this something that is reasonable that we should expect game devs to be able to do in Web3? And I ask the panel, is this fair or fucked up? Koji has the hand up first. Your thoughts on big time?
Oh, I have so many thoughts on this. I mean, my biggest thought is cry more. No offense to anyone if you're actually crying, because I feel like if it's actually good for the health of the game, then you just got to let them do it. Because if it's bad for the game, then whatever assets you're like whining about are just going to like be like if the game fails, those assets are going to be worth zero anyway. Now, should they be wiping them from players? Like maybe there should be some more thought as to like how the redemption of these things works to sort of make up for what these players are losing. I think that you can be a little bit smarter about that. But should games be allowed to wipe assets? I think that they should. I just think that you need to be a little bit more tactful about it and have a better plan in place, especially if they're there's going to be some errors involved. But ultimately, like I think the strategy is fine. The execution in this case just seems to have been a little bit off.
Jerry, I'm tagging you in next.
Yeah. Listen, big time as a client. I think really highly of them, but I agree completely with Koji. Um, I think that if something is going to be good for the long term health of the game, you need to prioritize that, and because that's going to be better for everybody in the long run. So people who are like financially invested now are understandably upset, right? But there was people taking advantage of a broken system, and you have to fix that, right? And when you're on the dev side of this, and I've been on that side, it's like getting punched in the face or punched in the balls, like having to choose like between one of the two, and you're still going to get punched regardless. It's like, what's going to suck worse? And it's hard to win in that moment, right?
Faith.
Yeah, choose faith. um, yeah, so it's just tough, man. Like, but I don't blame them for prioritizing the long term health of the game. It really does suck that people, maybe are not going to get the returns that they were expecting. But listen, we're in a risky market, right? And sometimes people want like the safe 10% returns mentality that you get from like the S&P, or if you just invested in like VOO or something. So, you're not going to get both in this world. And I think some people got caught out, and that sucks. But, I do have, that big time's in a no-win position with what they have to do. So, um, if they prioritize the health of the game, good for them.
Thinking back to Koji talking about whenever they had to nerf some parallel cards, I remember doing a subject maybe like 20 or 30 weeks ago now about nerfing cards that were extremely valuable on the marketplace for the health of the game, knowing that some people were going to lose what ended up being a very expensive card in the process, and how that is a necessary evil. Lems, I'm going to send it over to you, and then if nobody else wants to talk on this, I'll move on to the last topic of the day.
Yeah, I will say that to your point there, what Koji had said about nerfing cards, I think that's a little bit more expected, at least. Like the players are expecting that there could be balancing and things that happen, which could change the value. Like Jerry said, like big time are in a really shitty position, and I agree with what Koji had said too. Of like, it's what's best for the long term health of the game is what's the most important. I do think the comms on this and their strategy, like they could have probably found a maybe more amicable solution for the players. But my other question is, did they launch the economy too early? Like I know games that are launched, even when they come out, they might have bugs later. But in a game that's in early access, are they jumping the gun by having these assets that are worth a lot of money and people are buying these loot boxes that are very expensive in a game that's not actually fully ready and is going to be prone to more bugs as opposed to a game that has actually fully launched? And then as a result, people are finding these exploits because the game hasn't had enough time to be fully developed. So is there a problem that stems from that? And that's the kind of underlying issue. And this is just a result of releasing a game in an economy too early.
Some really good comments coming in on this one. Jaxie says 99% of people affected are victims. I love how it's punish the community, not the bad doer. I paid for it. That is what Web3 is all about, right? I'm supposed to own it. Nope, not on open loot. Hakeo says the exploit is definitely bad for the game. Wiping the items from the game and giving them an unreasonable time frame is very lazy. The devs should have definitely thought it through more and also communicated with the community to come up with a proper and more fair solution. And then Iger says there should be a reward system for reporting dupes and harsh punishment for the ones knowingly using them. I think Caterwin had the hand up next.
Yeah, I was gonna chime in and say stuff similar to the commenters, which is that it sounds like Big Time did a bad job of handling this. It sounds like they did not deal with this properly. It sounds like after they clocked their own fuck up that they fucked up again, and it's like, why are you making your players pay the price for your fuck ups? That's my gut reaction, not knowing too much about the situation. And I think also like the conversation around folks sort of buying expensive loot boxes and items, before the game is like quote unquote fully out of early access. I mean, it is really expensive to build a game, and so sort of the funding model of most of these blockchain games has just been sell a bunch of shit up front, make a ton of promises that you probably can't live up to. Maybe you can live up to some of them, and hope that people buy in, and then you use that money to actually build your game. And so I think like the funding model sets up a lot of challenges for game developers. Like when you're running on that funding model, I think you are potentially opening yourself up to like SEC probes, in the future. I think there's a lot of things that you have to be like really careful about, because when you're basically telling people like, yes, like number go up, number go up, and then people are mad when number go down, that to me is sort of an accident waiting to happen. And I do think that a lot of the assets are dramatically overpriced and seriously like in their own sort of bubble, where it's like, why am I paying $500 for a fucking like common sword, so that's another question that I think folks should ask, is sort of these false bubble economies and the risks around them.
Very, very well said there. I definitely think there's an issue here where the price of the asset got inflated because of the expectations that it would unlock big time currency, and then whenever you change that about the asset, people are kind of rugged, for lack of a better way of putting it, whenever they bought that asset with that expectation. I'm going to Koji, then to Jerry.
I just want to clarify that I'm being a little cheeky. Like, obviously, I don't think that the community should have to pay the price for a fuck up, but I just think that the developers should be able to do what they need to do in order to ensure the health of the game. They just need to make sure that anyone who's put money in and invested early, uh, gets compensated accordingly. The one thing I will say that I think is very contradictory in the behavior of a lot of people in Web3, and I kind of tweeted about this earlier. I hate referencing my own tweets. I've become such a full degen, it's disgusting. But I tweeted about this earlier, is like everyone here is just like, oh, Web3 is amazing. We should, everyone iterates out in the open and we can talk to the developers. We can have all this discourse, blah, 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 blah. But they don't want to acknowledge the fact that with open iteration and early access and gray boxes and all this stuff comes the downside, which is like not everything's going to be perfect out of the gate, right? But what we're saying is, oh, maybe these guys did this too early. Maybe they didn't think it through. Maybe whatever. Like, yeah, I mean, they definitely made mistakes, and I'm not defending them, but I'm also like, our mentality is give us everything now, even before it's ready. We're going to help you build. We're here for the long haul. This is all about like doing things out in the open. And then when a mistake is made out in the open, everyone's like, "Hey, what the fuck? What are you guys doing? Why is this happening? Why isn't this perfect out of the game? Maybe you should have just like locked this up until it was ready." And I think both of those are like conflicting mentalities that seem kind of insane. We're a little bit bipolar in this space, and I think we need to figure out where we're actually going to land here if this is going to work.
I would say we are extremely bipolar in this space, but appreciate the measured take. Jerry, over to you.
Yeah, I really, really appreciate like Kate and Koji's thoughts. And false bubble economy is definitely going into my Rolodex of terms I use. I think there's a really weird dynamic that exists in with like the immutability of blockchain and NFTs, right? And things that, people always say like the famous story of like Vitalik and his sword got nerfed or whatever, which I don't even think is a true story, by the way. Um, so you combine like the immutable ledger that is supposed to be blockchain with like the constant iteration that games need to go through, and you see a really big misalignment sometimes. And I think that it puts devs in a really tough position, right? Because you do need to constantly iterate, constantly change, and constantly tweak levers, and sometimes that's gonna, when that happens, people who've invested money into something are gonna get uh kind of fucked, right? I think Sam, you talked about like before, like there was like a Gods Unchained card that they like swore to never take out, but it was also like a game breaking card, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, and that wasn't Gods Unchained, but I know you've told that story before, and like that creates a really shitty experience for something that you play against, right? So like I don't know. There's just this really big misalignment when it comes to those two things, and I think like the two sides are going to have to come together at some point and understand, the other part. I will say from the community side of Big Time, like there's no excuse for bad comms. So I'm totally with that side of things. If you can always control like your messaging and the way you communicate, and doing so poorly is kind of unacceptable to me. So I am with the Big Time community on that. Please come after me like Illuvium community does.
Yeah, you are correct, Jerry. There's an entire Genesis set of cards in Gods Unchained that they said they would never change, and as part of that Genesis set, there is a certain card. I believe it was called the Demogorgon, and it was absolutely unequivocally busted. And there was only there was I don't know 1,000 of them, 2,000 of them, something like that. It's been a while since I've played. I'm not sure. Maybe newer expansions have made it less good, but you basically could not be at the top of the leaderboard without two Demogorgons in your deck, and they were like an ETH apiece at the time that I was playing. Sinjin, I'll give you the last word on this one.
Yeah, no, I just want to talk specifically about the Big Time and example specifically, and I really resound with what Lems had said, in the sense that, like, have they bitten off more than they can chew? And I'm a game designer, but I've also been a gaming executive, and I think as a gaming executive, I have a lot more experience there, and I can tell when people are flying by the seat of their pants. Being from that position, and these guys are flying by the seat of their pants. It's not a matter of bad comms. It's a matter of, like, when they've made changes in their economy, it's been really drastic and out of the blue, because I think they are really trying to figure things out as they go along. One major issue was that, yes, there were ways to mitigate this for the user, but for other users who took full advantage of the situation, they ended up getting in a lag situation when they had so many assets in their account, because these were not NFTs. These were like in game, and that's why they're able to wipe it, right? And so, that the product itself, and also managing expectations as well. Like, if things are not ready, you should hold back a bit, right? You need to give that, player experience, the best footing in that expectation. But if you're playing some other type of game, right, whether it's like you want to get that revenue in, you want to hit certain targets for your investors, you just want to get ahead of the curve here, and you're willing to cut corners and stuff like this, and end up flying by the seat of your pants, I mean, you are responsible for that. I'll give an example for us. We have our beta. It's like fucking 2 months overdue. We had this build. It was going to be fantastic. And there's major connections issues because of the way that we're loading up the RAM now. And it's playable for some, it's playable for not. But I told everyone in our Discord, don't post on socials. It's just not ready to be out there. It looks better. It's more optimized, so on and so forth, but it's just not ready. And so managing those expectations in a real way, it's like the agenda of where the game is at, and where the management is at, where the executives are at, and I think the priorities of where Big Time is, they put themselves in a situation where they're fucking around here a bit, because they're flying by the seat of their pants, and they're never going to have good comms, because these are very unexpected things that are happening, and the community is right to be upset, because these are expectations that are out there. And the fact that if it was exploitable in the very first place for them to amass so many, of these, in-game assets, that is on the developer as well. So, like, I'm not buying all this. I'm looking at it from an executive's point of view, someone who's older and seasoned, and I'm just like, the community, you got fucked here on many levels. Now, for operating and iterating in the open, yes, and there are a lot of valid things there. But in this particular case, I think that Big Time really should make it up to the community, 100%.
Thanks so much for that, Sinjin. It's always great to get the founder's perspective on some of these really, really hard decisions that people have to make. Our final winners for the day: Macho Nacho is going to win the other Hexacore Silver Pass, worth $250. I believe that should get you some airdrop exposure from that company as well. Big shout out for giving us the retweet. Appreciate that. And then Cesar Martinez is going to win Gamified Bingo this week. He's going to get that other Cityverse whitelist. Appreciate everybody participating in all of that. And just in general, want to give a huge shout out to everybody that comes and listens and participates each week. We make this show for you guys, And maybe it's a pleasant side effect that people enjoy being on the panel too. But it's always amazing to get that support. And as we reload and regroup, let's give a tactical salute to Shrapnel, the premier extraction shooter powering the pulse of Web3 gaming. Shrapnel hosts the best live events in the gaming galaxy, tournaments where tactics and tenacity are tested under the watchful eyes of a global audience, while Dub and Cairo slam keyboards and make memories. But what truly sets Shrapnel apart is their team, a platoon of pioneers in the Web3 wilderness. They're the architects of your arenas and the guardians of your gameplay. Special shout out Tony, Dub, Saigo. Big thanks to Shrapnel for being the official game of Gamified. And let's not forget the power behind the play, Avalanche, the official blockchain of Gamified. Get ready to rally with legends as Avalanche powers up partnerships with titans of esports like Korea's famous T1 esports team doing live activations, or North America's TSM Blitz migrating to a subnet. At Avalanche, every click, clash, and conquest is supercharged with the coolest tech in the cosmos, making history one block at a time. So stay frosty and remember that in the world of Web3 gaming, Avalanche is where the legends are playing, and Stardust, the official infrastructure of Gamified. Before you log off, let's zoom into their latest game changer, Stardust's new user acquisition tool. Imagine snagging the spotlight for your digital domain, drawing in droves of dedicated gamers all at a fraction of the cost. Stardust makes it happen by tailoring your reach to the right players at the right time. So keep your games glowing and your player base growing, and let Stardust be the secret sauce to your success. And of course, my incredible panelists. We got Dub behind the Shrapnel account, Kate Irwin joining us from the audience. Always amazing to have you yet again, Kate. Sinjin, the mastermind behind Meiji. Ed Chang, the head of gaming from AVAX. Always appreciate your incredible insights. Koji from Parallel being willing to take on Jauwn live and in person. Appreciate you giving us that perspective. Wild Paul, absolutely incredible. Taking on the entire panel in defense of being able to implement and iterate on new technologies in old games. Lem's the co-host with the co-most. Jerry crushing it with uptick and user marketing campaigns. I still don't know what the fuck you guys do, but I'm sure you're good at it. And Kevin from Planet Atmos. I can't thank you enough for coming and joining us on today's episode. Sorry guys, I'm still a little bit frazzled, but we're back same time, same place next week, and you'll love to see it. Appreciate each and every one of you guys. We'll see you there.
Appreciate you, Sam. Take care, y'all. Have a great week.
Wildcon.